Here we go. Um, Welcome everyone to this part of our Hot Topics webinar. My name is Joseph Tuitavake from Auckland Rugby. I am the game development manager there. One of the portfolios I look after is our coach development. I guess what we're trying to do here is try something new, some learning that you can do from home or even in your own time if you're watching the recording of this. The outline of this session will be around core skills. Why are we doing it? It was the session that was voted on from the survey that went out to see what it is that our coaches want to know. So rather than us coming up with the topics ourselves, we thought we'd ask our community and see what it is that you wanted to know. We'll go through a little bit of what core skills actually are, what the key factors are of each one, and how you can sort of translate this into your sessions. And if there are any questions at the end, we can go through that. This will take anywhere from 30 to 45 or an hour max. Awesome. Why core skills? They are the foundation of our game. They're the building blocks of our game. How does it differentiate to the other skills? So you've got unit skills, which we classify as group skills or skills that you might see, for example, like a line out where you've got someone throwing the ball in, it's got someone jumping, got someone lifting. So it's a skill that's executed as a group of people or as a unit. It might be your line out strike, where the halfback passes, first 5 kicks, winger catches, footwork and score, or we can say positional skills. So a hooker throwing the ball into the line out, halfback, box kicking, etc. What are the core skills though? They are basically the skills that every rugby player needs, no matter what position they are in the game of rugby. So whether you are a front rower, a fullback, a flanker, an inside back, everybody needs to run, catch, pass. Everybody needs to be able to tackle. Yes, even first fives. And everyone needs to know how to carry the ball in clean out, what we term or group as ball into contact. So our ball carries and our cleanouts. And then what we term a soft skill, vision and decision making. And we'll get to know that as we go through this. Just stop me at any time if you have any questions. So first one here, run, catch, pass, or some coaches often just call catch, pass. I've added in the run, catch, pass, the run at the start because that is part of it in terms of your departure times, the running lines that you have. And obviously in the game of rugby, principles of play, we do want to move forward with that ball. I've put 4 key pillars there in the middle. So we've got communication, we've got departure time, we've got early catch and follow through. And I'll just go through what each of those mean. So with the communication, that's the answer to all things, not just in rugby, apparently, just ask my wife. But in communication, we mean something that's specific and it's a useful piece of instruction. So definitely when I was growing up, you might just call, yep, 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 or pass, pass, pass. So while that may be an instruction, I need something a bit more specific to make that more useful for me. So am I passing to my left? Am I passing to my right? Am I passing long? Am I passing short? Is it a pop-up pass? Am I going into contact and offloading from there? Is it a deep pass? Is it a shallow pass? So any information that my teammates can give me can help me with that run, catch, pass. So that communication is vital. Name obviously helps me with, obviously I can hear that sound. I know where it's coming from. I have an idea and I know who exactly is talking to me or who I am talking to. Departure time. So that's when I start moving. So that's, am I running? Am I moving when the ball carrier has the ball? Am I moving late when they've made the pass? How deep am I standing? How shallow am I standing? And that's all contextual. Okay, so that depends on what the defensive line is doing, what our attack has done before then. Okay, so am I holding my feet? So holding or slowing my feet down, allowing for decision making. Okay, so what I mean by that is rather than hitting the ball at pace, okay, especially if they've got a defensive line that's flat and have line speed on, if I'm going at them 100 miles an hour as well as them coming up at me 100 miles an hour, that cuts down the time with that ball in flight for me to catch that ball and for me to execute my decision making and my pass after that. So depending on the context, if there's line speed, I might just hold my feet or slow my feet down to give myself time to make that catch and execute my pass as well. I might be standing a bit deeper because we do want to move the ball a bit wider. We want to get around a defense as opposed to getting through a defense. Um, and that might be what's presented in terms of the picture defensively in front of us, or just what the play is that we are executing at that time. Early catch. So, and I do apologize with this. We will start adding some pictures and videos that we can send out post this and we pop up online. But just for the purpose of this little pilot, we're just going to go through what's on the screen. So early catch, really, it's just having our hands out ready to make that catch. So rather than our hands coming up late as the ball's in the air, or the ball's just getting to us and our hands come up late, where we can potentially have a knock on. So we're having our hands up early, ready to execute that pass as soon as that ball is within catching distance. Okay, so, and also having my hands out towards that ball. Okay, the little note before, like leaning forward, just gives that space for my hands to come across my body a little bit easier. And I'm also in a slightly athletic position where I can catch that ball and transition that ball across my body when I execute my pass. So fingers towards the ball, nice and soft. We call that an early catch. You can use your own terms, but those soft fingers also help with that catch of the ball. Also gives me that time to execute that pass. Okay, gives me a little bit more time than if I was to come hands up late and catch that ball. And also, if I'm catching that ball in front of me or out to the side of me, where I have to reload to make that pass again, that also takes a bit more time where defenses can shut down the passes being made into space. The close hand lower, all that means is if the ball's coming from my right hand side, my right hand is slightly lower. It just gives you a better catching position. And also if you're catching in that position, it allows you to transfer over where your left hand, as you're passing to your left, becomes a guiding hand and your right hand can power through that pass. Okay, so that's our early catch. I'll follow through. The snap head to C, really it's just once that early catch is being made, we can snap our head across to C where we want to pass. Holding the hip square is just so, of course, we can hold defenders in front of us and we're not cramping each other's space, so we are able to run straight. So square is just meaning running straight, square towards the try line. Hands across the body, as opposed to looping passes, just going to help with the speed of that pass. And if we can punch and power through and shoot to target, just helps us make sure that ball goes where we want it to go. So that's what the follow through is. And that's where we, I might touch on this a little bit later on, but how we troubleshoot things. So the ball's going into the ground, the ball's going behind us, the ball's going up in the air. We can help troubleshoot this by, one of the things can be the follow through, or whether it's the departure time. But certainly the follow through definitely helps in terms of where we want that ball to go. Okay, so that's run, catch, pass. These are the key things that we think you should be able to teach. But I guess to put in context, just be mindful that we can't coach all things all at the same time. It's usually a good idea to see what your players can do and execute really well without overloading them cognitively, and maybe just giving them one or two little tips that we can see is missing, whether that be the snapping the head or whether it be holding the hips square, or whether it's the following through. Just giving them one or two things is easy for them to take on board and implement, rather than giving them 10 things and it just confuses them and they aren't able to adjust their learning. So a little bit of coaching tip there. Tackle technique is the next core skill that every player needs to be able to execute. I've put 4 things on the board there. So we got feet, eyes, head position, and squeeze. Okay, so feet, if some people like to look at contact, like tackle tech in terms of pre-contact, in contact, post-contact. Feet would be our pre-contact. There will be a little bit of in contact there as well. But what I mean by feet is just getting our alignment, so getting ourselves into a position where we are where we want to be, whether that's inside shoulder, outside shoulder, or square on. Do ask questions later on if none of that makes any sense. But one way to do it is crest on crest. So if we're going inside shoulder, it's my crest of my jersey on my player's opposition chest as well, or the opposite way if we're trying to shut them down in line speed and we're going outside shoulder in. Closing space. So obviously once I've got my feet ready to go, closing space, so I get off the line with a bit of speed, potentially with bigger steps, and then we prop our feet as we get closer to the attacker. And that allows us to make any adjustments for footwork. Same leg, same shoulder is going to lead into the other pieces there. But if we step in with our power legs, so if we're tackling with our left shoulder, they're running at our left shoulder, we go left foot in, left shoulder in. That puts our head in a nice, safe position, but also a strong position as well. Most of you should have seen this through our Rugby Smart and our Small Blacks courses as well. With the eyes piece, again, it's pre-contact, but it's also sighting that target, making sure I understand who my target is, but also the target on the body, whether we're going tummy tackles, which is becoming more and more popular due to its safety these days, or whether we're looking to chop, or whether we're looking to stack. Okay, so chop is just a nice low tackle, just getting them straight to ground as quickly as possible. Stack tackle is just when we're just holding them up. So starting that target, keeping that alignment, like I spoke about before, inside shoulder, square on, outside shoulder, whatever you might be using. And then the eyes on through contact. It's just that when often we dip late, and that's one of the pieces we do encourage, as we close space, we dip late, same leg, same shoulder, but often our eyes go to ground. Okay, so we make sure we keep eyes on our target. That way we can adjust for any late movements and get into a good position to execute that tackle and not hurting our heads. Speaking of the heads, tummy tackle is often safe around here, around the belly, tackle on the ball, obviously to keep under that sternum with the new laws. But something that's not often talked about is tucking in that head nice and tight. And tucking in tight, one, your head and your neck puts you in a nice strong position if you're able to make that squeeze, but also it keeps your head nice and safe. If there's too much space between your head and the hip or knee or wherever the target is that you're on, any big movements or adjustments from the ball carrier or attacker colliding with the head can cause injuries. 45% of our injuries or concussions happen with contact from the head of the tackler to the ball carrier's hip or knee. So just something to be mindful of. And this next part around landing on top or landing on the side. So if it's a dominant tackle, so we're able to land on top, making sure we teach that, or we're landing to the side if it's a passive tackle. You can even land on top if you turn as you tackle passively. Often something that we will see is players, especially those new to the games, see this a lot in the female game or in the junior game, where tackles made, close space really well, same leg, same shoulder, late dip, eyes are on, tackles made, but then they pull that ball carrier onto them with their head on the ground and the ball carrier landing on top of them. Right, so making sure they finish using that ball carrier as a pillow, as a cushion between the ground and their head. That squeeze there is just around the arms, making sure we get a nice punch through with the tackle, so we get a nice strong position and not out wide, okay, not big wide branches, keeping them nice and tight. Superman punch through, keep our muscles nice and tight and strong, and a big squeeze to finish that tackle. That's really important in order to finish tackles, to get a good squeeze and taking that player to the ground. And of course, post-contact is making sure we roll east to west, so sideline to sideline and rejoin the defensive line. Okay, because if we're off our feet, we're out of the game. Cool. On to our next piece. This is ball into contact. I know we're flying through this, so if you're online, just stop me and ask any questions anytime you need. Ball into contact. There are two pieces to this actually. So that's our ball carries, and then there's our cleanouts. The four pieces we do have on here is our carry, our presentation, our cleanout, and the barge, which is a defensive term that we'll get to in a second. So with our carry, making sure we win that race to the game line. Obviously, principles of play, we are wanting to move forward. And then, of course, this is, of course, if we haven't found space. So if we're determined that we are going to carry, let's win that race to the gain line. And to keep us moving forward, let's make sure we use or teach footwork into space or to weak shoulders. That way we can hopefully beat and have a bit of dominance on the tackler to keep us moving forward. Okay, body height, low and square. Obviously, if we are deemed that we are going into to contact, body height's really important. If we're nice and high, easy for defenses to fold us like laundry. So getting you nice and low. Staying square allows us to keep our power moving forward and getting our chest over the ball to protect it. That way, when we do power forward and we do eventually get stopped, if we don't make a line break, is we can score the try. Yes, okay, so literally scoring that try. So ball on the chest and the arms, scoring that on the ground, and then from there we can move into our presentation. Okay, but that does allow us to keep our power moving forward, and then also allows us to have one dynamic movement to get the ball away from our defenders. So rip is a term that we use in our recent masterclasses that Stephen Bates, our NPC coach, is using just to, I guess, sort of add some color to what we're trying to teach. And that's an aggressive, dynamic movement of that ball once we've scored the try away from the defense and placing it ideally below our feet or away from our feet, or if we can shift our hips out of the way or even at least move our feet away while keeping the gait as slow as possible. That way, it's easy for our cleaners to come through and create some space so that our halfbacks or whoever's coming up to pick up the ball next has got good clean space for that ball. It's clearly on our side, and we can play on from there and get good, clean, quick ball. Cool. The clean out. So the clean out, and I'm talking about here, if it's on my ball to start with, really the positions are pretty much all the things that we talked about in the tackle. But what I want to encourage is we win races. So we get there first, because if we get there first, we've got rights to the ball. If we get there first, however, and our body height is too high, we're going to lose that battle of defensive cleaners coming through and winning that height battle. Okay. The next thing, so win the race, win the height battle, and then obviously you got to brace and win the contact battle as well. So get there first, get lower, and brace yourself. And eyes help with that. So try and avoid our players who get there and just stick their head into the play or into the ground and they can't see for what's coming, which means they can't brace appropriately for what's coming. So eyes up so they can see what's happening. They can make decisions from there also, and brace as appropriate as it's coming through. What do I mean by that line there around kill or wound? A bit of aggressive terms there, but what that really means is what that cleaner is doing. So kill really is I'm coming in and taking away a threat. So a defender is coming to try and steal or jackal the ball, and I've just cleaned that person out safely and legally. So I've come in, got there first, I've gone low, and I've taken him out of the game by getting that person off their feet. So we call that a kill. Okay, ideally we take them, I guess, within the letter of the law, about a meter away. That way they're well away and clear of the ruck, so it gives our team clean ball, but also it forces the defensive teams to have to fold or come around that person that's been cleaned out and killed on the ground. Excuse the term. A wound really is a similar situation where you haven't quite gotten that person to the ground, but you have taken them away as a threat from that breakdown, about a meter away from that breakdown, within the letter of the law. But that also does force defenses to then run at least a meter extra around you, giving yourself time as attackers to identify space, but also get you nice cleaner ball as well. Cool, kill wound. On the defensive side, barge really is just someone coming in and being an absolute menace and trying to take your attacking cleaners out of the way so that we can barge through and come and steal that ball. So really all that we're asking is for our defenders who have not made the tackle, unless they've tackled and rolled and entered back to the gate again, is just to be a menace, which forces attackers to commit numbers into there, so they've got less attackers out there stressing out a defensive line. Obviously, if our barge is successful and we go through and we win races or we win height and contact and take them through and there's daylight on the ball, let's get a lift on that ball. So jacklers or defenders now trying to steal ball, often what we did in the past is just get hands on and the referee gives us the penalty. Now referees are looking to see that there's an actual attempt to lift the ball, because if you can lift it, you can play on and it's your ball. Or if you are lifting it and the attacker on the ground is holding on, then that becomes a clear penalty. So that is ball into contact. No questions, we'll carry on. Last but not least, vision and decision making. So a bit of a soft skill. So there are two things that we often talk about in terms of the ball carrier and what they are aiming to. So two things that help me as a ball carrier. So usually whoever has the ball is the decision maker. And the two things that help that decision maker are eyes and ears, or what they can see and what they can hear. Okay, so with that piece of information, that ball carrier or decision maker can make an informed decision. If they don't have one or the other, then they're flying blind or they're flying deaf. All right, so eyes, what am I looking at? So what are we coaching our players to look at? Are we looking at space? Are we looking at specific defenders to try and engage and hold and keep them there? Are we looking for space in the backfield? Is it myself as a ball carrier, or are we, and also what are we teaching our support players to look at in terms of the space that they have or the mismatches they might have and the information that they can then feed in as well. Head on a swivel, that's both on attack and defense. So it's obviously not just ruck watching or watching whoever has the ball or what's happening at the breakdown. It's making sure I can look at what's happening with the ball, feeding information, and I can look at what's happening in front of me, and I can look at what's happening in the backfield or with my teammates as well. But ideally, we've got specified roles for them where they can see what's happening, that's coming, the play coming towards them. They can see what's in front of them, where they can make a decision or inform the ball carrier on any decisions that they can make. In terms of the ears, so pieces are put in there are big talk and small talk, and of course specific useful comms, which we talked about before. So the big talk is, if we're talking about, it can be both on attack or defense. But if we're talking about attack, so big talk might be the call, the play that you guys are playing, and that's can usually from the game drivers that are making these big calls, so everybody knows what the play is going to be and what their roles are going to be, and that's feeding that information so everybody can hear that and understand what their roles will be. The small talk then is in the person to person. So for example, it might be myself as the first five and my second five or my winger inside me, and just that small talk. So I might say, hey, our big call is Auckland Girls 1, 2, 3. And then I might say to my inside back, I might say, I want you a little bit tighter. We're going to attack this seam over here. Or to my winger, I might say, stand a little bit deeper because we're going to attack the line and pull it out the back for you on this one. Okay, defensively, it might be, this is my man, that's your man, or we might be going line speed as a whole defensive line, and then it might be talking to the man inside and outside. You come in a little bit tighter, push out a little bit wider. Let's stick together as we're coming up forward and stay connected. So little pieces around big talk, small talk, and how we encourage our players and teach them to start to learn these things and build that team chemistry as well. This commit here is a little bit more around the technical parts around drawing defenders and the running lines that you have. So drawing defenders, obviously, making sure that they understand, similar to the run catch pass around attacking defenders at the line, so that they're not pushing off in defense. The running lines, that's talking about running lines pre and post. So that's the line that we might be running and why we might be doing that, why we're deciding to do that, whether it's a short line, an outside line, or the types of passes that we're going to do in committing to those. And the running lines I just talked about there, like a sharp line, rather than running all the way around and giving yourself too much time, and rather closing that into from an A to B as the crow's nest goes in terms of the running lines that you have, things like Y lines or L lines or whatever the halfback lines is, and that's something we can talk about in our attack workshop. But just committing to those and understanding the importance of those different things. Something that definitely helps with all of that is speed to set. So making sure whatever the next phase of play will be, attacking wise or defensive wise, that we're making sure that we are moving quickly to sit, so that we can look up and see what's happening, and we can communicate and feed that to the ears of the decision makers in terms of what we're going to do next. What I just got there in terms of context, it's just the policies, time, field position. And that's just around some teams might have policies in terms of what they want to achieve when, they receive a kick in the backfield, how they want to run, if they're running the ball back, if the ball's coming back off an edge. So that might determine in terms of the running lines and drawing defenders and what we want to do in terms of helping us with our eyes and ears and our decision making in those specific positions. And also, of course, the field position that we're in. Something might feel like it's a 50-50 opportunity, whether we want to take that opportunity or risk inside our half or inside our 22 versus in the other team's half. In terms of time, how much time we have left in the game and how that's going to affect our decision making as well. Well, good. This one is a bit of a softer skill, and probably you could go down the rabbit hole in lots of different pieces here, but just something to be aware of in terms of vision decision making. If you were to take anything away from this, it's just eyes and ears, what our players are looking at and making sure that they can look up and they can look for opportunities and that they are communicating things specifically to each other. Okay, so eyes and ears help us with our decision making. So how do you fit all these kinds of things into trainings? Probably the most popular way is having skill blocks. So having dedicated parts of your session of your training on a Tuesday or training on a Thursday where we go through each of these skills. And I do encourage that you always put aside time in your training sessions for the core skills of our game because these are the building blocks of our game. Okay, and that context might be different for a high school team that's still learning really how to catch a pass, maybe a representative team where all they need is just 5 minute short and sharp rotations within game. Get through 4 different stations, short and sharp, just as a reminder before they get into the rest of their session. Or it might be your bang for buck. It might be the meat and bones of your session in a school team, for example, where you spend 15 to 20 minutes on each. Although I would just caution around making sure you keep them engaged and interested. And ways to do that is turning things into games. So obviously you can have primers with your catch and pass, but make sure you're adding a version or some sort of game so that the learnings are not only fun, but also it's increased or the learning is steeper if you do games instead of a drill. Okay, so for example, I got there is a game of touch. You can essentially use the game of touch to teach all 4 skills. Okay, so obviously run, catch, pass. It could be if the pass isn't a perfect pass, or whether there was no follow through, or the catch ended up being above the head, or there was no really catch. It could be a turnover, so we can enforce good messages. Okay, what's the next one? Tackle tech could actually be, and we've done this before, whether it's a game of touch to start with, where players are running and it's touch, two-handed touch. Once the touch is made, players go down, referee head to head, referee then blows the whistle, and then it becomes a one-on-one tackle. Okay, if you don't want it to actually be any contact, then you could just reinforce the same things around touches. Must be same leg, same shoulder, must be at a certain height, and the touch must be around the thighs, the hips, or the tummy, for example. Okay. With the ball into contact, it could be once a touch is made, they got to have footwork, they got to score the try, present the ball, must be a clean and there in a good position, and win the race and the height battle. Otherwise, defenders that can come through, win the race or the height battle, and get a turnover. Okay, decision making, obviously, with everything that's happening, decision making comes into all of it. But if you want to accentuate that, you could go numbers down, numbers up, etc. Okay, what I've just got there, wove into everything. Essentially, it doesn't have to be its own block where it sits on its own. You could weave it into everything that you do, from your team runs, from your backline strikes, reinforcing all those key messages, whatever it might be. You can still teach core skills of rugby and add little bits and key messages in as you go through that. Okay, on to problem solving and coaching it. We touched on this a little bit, but those key factors that we spoke about before, and I will try and upload this on the website so you can see it on the Auckland Rugby website. But essentially, those key factors are how you can problem solve with that coaching. So balls were going everywhere, for example. It could be that the follow through wasn't that great. With tackles keep getting missed, it could be that they're tackling from too far, they're not getting their feet in close, or they're not executing that wrap and squeeze, or they're getting concussions, maybe their head's in the wrong position, etc. So that's just where you ask yourself, where did it break down? What are the key factors of the skill? And that's where we focus our coaching. You can also break down a skill into parts of it. So, for example, in the tackle, you could break it down into all those different things. You can focus on the line speed or the pre-contact, with mirroring games where you try and mirror them and try and stick with your defender or your attacker, sorry, in line speed and footwork games. And then it could just end up with, a little contact at the end in terms of a touch or shoulder and belly, and that's it. And we're just working on that initial part and trying to get into good positions, trying to get our feet off the line, foot speed in, get our feet in close. Or it could just be that head position. We're not getting our heads in good position. One of the ones we use is we end up in the finish position of a tackle. So my hands are already wrapped around the ball carrier, my head's tucked in nice and tight, and I squeeze. And on the coach's whistle, ball carrier tries to get up off the ground, tackler tries to keep them nice and tight, tries to hold them down, just so they get a feel for what it feels like, what a good tackle feels like at the end. Good question to ask yourself is, how can I turn this into a game, or how can I make this drill competitive? That way, engagement is higher, the fun is higher, but also the retention and the learning curve we've found to be about 70% higher. So studies have shown that if in a drill, retention and the learning curve could be around, retention will be around anywhere from 15 to 30% of what you've taught in that. Obviously, these players. Whereas if you've turned it into a game, that retention rate usually is around 70% because they're more engaged, because it's fun, because you've added a bit of competition in and they're trying to do better and win at whatever it is that you're doing. Just another point, just to make sure that things are appropriate for the learner. So making sure you understand how to progress and regress whatever game or drill it is that you have. So a key stat for that is, well, how do I know whether to make this harder or make it easier? It's that success rate. So if they're getting things around 70, 80% of the time, so I'm like, well, what does that mean? Well, if they're making, 8 out of 10 tackles or 3 out of 5 tackles or whatever, then you think maybe that's a sweet spot. If they're getting more, okay, they're getting 10 times out of 10. One, we already know that they can do it because they're getting it 10 out of 10. So they're not learning anything new. And if they're not learning anything new, they're not being stretched. And if they're not being stretched, they're usually not having fun because they're doing something they can already do. On the flip side, if it's too hard, if they're only getting it 3 times out of 10, okay, then they start to not enjoy it because they think they suck at this, and it starts to bang on their confidence. Okay, so that's the confidence and competence piece. So how do I change a game or a drill to sort of get close to that sweet spot? Well, time and space. So how fast or how much time I've given to this, or how much space I've given them, and also the decisions to make. Are we only tackling on the left shoulder? Okay, that's the decision I have to make. It's just one decision. Are we giving the ball carrier license to use footwork? So tackler has to make a decision on whether it's left shoulder or right shoulder, progress it even more. Now there's multiple attackers. Who am I going to defend now? Okay, make it harder each time, or take away decisions to make it easier, take away space to make it easier, take away time, slow it down to make it easier. Okay, you can play with those things to make a game or a drill easier or harder, progress it or regress it to suit your team. Now that is it for this session. Thank you for your time and attention. I don't see any questions in here. Do reach out if you have any questions, and good luck and good skills for the rest of your season. And we'll see you at the next one, which looking like will be around coaching craft. Thank you from Auckland Rugby. Take care. Have a good one.